Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about May, and then let's talk about June. So, first things first, let's talk about my cards for the month. And for May, I know I didn't do it on camera because I didn't have an April wrap-up and May intentions, but I did end up drawing a card for the month, and I pulled Intuition. And then my card of the month within the tarot was the Seven of Swords. So here is my spread for May, and I think it's one of my favorites that I've done so far in this little journal here. As you know, I like to define things, so I started out with the definition here because I think intuition is one of those things that's very hard to describe or nail down, not only feeling wise, but in trying to tell somebody like what is intuition if they've never heard of it. So it's the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. I think that was a really great definition. And then I just wrote down some synonyms here. I think that helps me to better understand each keyword. And then I talked about intuition and the Seven of Swords together, since that was my combination for this month. I think it was very accurate in the month that I experienced. Kind of coming off of April, the vibe was pretty much similar. And then I pulled out some card symbols. There weren't as many as other cards in the past, but purple obviously is a big theme. I wrote about purple. So if you notice these lines very close up, they're actually like vines. So there's some leaves there. So I wrote down vines, and then I wrote down nerves, because in a way this feels very like nerve-like in appearance, and with intuition I felt like that fit the bill. So I used vines and nerves to describe this pattern going on here. And then the pattern is right at the third eye, so I noted that down as a symbol as well. So for journal prompts, I wrote down a couple about my intuitive voice. What does that sound like? What does it feel like? How can I recognize it? Because I've noticed that I know I have intuition. I feel it very strongly, but listening to it is a whole different thing. And then because of that, I wanted to do a journal prompt about when I have trusted my intuition, how did it guide me, and write it down like that, because I find that, and I go into it more here with my takeaways, but I go on to say that more often than not, I seem to go against my intuition, and because I use it as a scapegoat for denial. When something isn't right, and I don't want it to be that way, I tend to ignore my intuitive voice, my intuitive feelings, and I tend to tamp it down. So that's obviously a shadow work issue. Not issue, but something for me to look into with shadow work. That's kind of what unfolded here throughout May, really, is knowing that I don't always listen to my intuition, starting to figure out why that is and what I kind of use it as a tool for, in positive ways and in negative ways. And then what I really tried to do is, in moments where my intuition was kicking in and I was doing the same old reaction, I wanted to try this activation spread about what my intuition wants me to know right now, what might be blocking that, and then how I can strengthen my connection to it. So I found that very, very helpful. And then a couple of mantras here, and I think the second one, well, I guess both of them are really nice, because one is speaking about being open to receiving the wisdom of my inner knowing, and the other is knowing that the answers are already within me, regardless if I want those answers or not. That's the hard part for me that I'm coming to know, I guess, is when my intuition is right, but I don't want it to be. How can I act on that? How can I move forward aligned with myself, but in a way that still stays true to me? I'm someone that's a people pleaser. In some ways, that's very unfortunate. But I'm a caregiver, I'm a people pleaser. I'm someone who is always going to be there to listen, to lean on, and I am a solutions-based thinker as well. So how can I apply those for myself, right? So yeah, overall, May had its ups and downs. And my practice was very gentle and very streamlined this month, because I'm still bouncing back from being away and feeling that burnout and going through those personal things in my life. So I wanted to keep everything fairly simple. So with that being said, let's draw our card for June and see what theme, lesson it has in store for me. All right, we have Emanate, a light in the darkness, radiate from within. Okay, so now the fun stuff. Let's talk about the decks that I worked with in May. Again, I kept it pretty simple. So the first one that I've been using or had been using is the Little Sister Tarot. I don't think this will come as a surprise. I've talked about this deck a lot lately, and it's just really been there for me. Gosh, every time I talk about this deck or I bring it out to speak about it, I don't know, I get emotional. It's because the intention behind this deck and the creator, I don't know, it touches my heart and I feel its beauty. It's a wonderful companion. It's definitely deserving a spot in like decks I would never want to be without, top decks in my collection, that kind of status. It's been wonderful to use, especially during this time. I find it very gentle and supportive. And the guidebook, while it's not like comprehensive, I will say the snippets in here are, I don't know, they get my mind going. I feel seen and heard and validated. Also, while being given a new perspective on some things, so it has like a really good balance to it. So yeah, this has been my companion pretty much during the past few months. So I just wanted to give it a shout here again. And then sometimes I would pair this deck, Animal Allies Birds, because there's a bunch of different categories in this Animal Allies, I guess, series. But I got this deck and the next deck I'm going to show here in a minute from Barnes & Noble's for Mother's Day. I've been really into birding, me and my partner. He really introduced me to it, and now that it's spring and leading into summertime, we are getting all different types of birds at our feeders, and it's really been a little moment of joy amongst everything that's been going on. And I would pair this with the Little Sister Tarot. Sometimes I would just use it on its own. Oh, this was the last card that I drew. I don't know if you guys do that sometimes, but sometimes the last card I draw, I leave face up. I don't know. Just as like a nice reminder, I guess. But I don't know. I like the artwork. I like the borders. I like the sketch drawing-esque style of these birds. While I am paying more attention to birds, I don't know a lot about them. So I feel like this is like the snapshot that I need. I actually really dig this box. I like having this little cutout here on the side. It makes it really easy to get the cards in the guidebook out, but this is what you get in the guidebook. So let's just go to Swan here. But yeah, it gives Swan superpowers, so kind of like symbols that the Swan is connected to or known for. The Swan wisdom, when this card appears, and what the Swan energy wants you to know. And I feel like this is just enough of a message paired along with the Little Sister Tarot or even by itself to really just give me some uplifting guidance. So I'll show a couple more cards here, but it's a cute little deck, and it was between this one and there's another bird one that I saw. I've been seeing some people feature it or showcase it. I'll put a picture up on the screen, but I just couldn't get this one out of my head, and I just gave it a try, and I don't know, I've been really loving it. And many of these birds, goldfinch, I mean, there's a good mix of like tropical birds versus, I don't know, woodland birds. I don't know how you describe them, but a lot of these birds I see around where I live, and a lot of them I don't. So I find it's a good mix. I don't know, I just love the colors. I love the art style. And the backs are really nice. Not what I would think for like birds, but I guess it's sky themed, color blue. The next deck I have been using for like really quick daily draw readings, and that's the World of Warcraft Tarot. Again, this was a Mother's Day deck that I received. I like how the majors, if you are familiar with WoW, there's a lot of in-depth lore behind it, but for the majors you get the actual character's name, which some more I'm familiar with and some I'm not. I originally got into WoW in 2011, I think. So, I think I had put these back in order recently. I was doing something with it, but so they're in order now, but I've been using these for like a daily draw, just a quick reading for the day. I think I mentioned this somewhere, maybe not, I can't remember. But Warcraft, I mean, there's a lot of fighting in it, and there's a lot of darkness to it. There's a lot of dark stories. But what I like about the deck is that it's kind of like brighter than I thought it was going to be, more pastel, more like watercolor-like in its coloring with the gold foiling around the edge here for the borders. And I really like that. I really like that ones because there's a lot of beautiful art in the game, and all of it is not dark whatsoever. So I don't know, I really like this art style and I appreciate it, and I like the coloring that they've chosen. And I'm familiar with a lot of these characters and tunes, and I had recently come back to Azeroth, I guess, in April while everything was kind of happening. I was into it like a lot while I was in college, and then real life kind of happened and I stepped away from the game. I would kind of teeter-totter back and forth, coming back to it, playing for a little while, and dipping out, and I think that's probably how I will do it for the rest of its existence. But I've been enjoying getting back into it. It's a little sad because when I joined, it was the Cataclysm expansion, and now it's the War Within expansion, and just a lot of things have changed. So I'm kind of relearning it all over again, and it feels like a different game. Like, I still see the same characters and, you know, stuff like that, but a lot of it has changed, so I'm trying to get used to that. I'm not exactly sold on everything, but I don't know. Me and my partner have been playing it, and I've been really enjoying just taking my time with it and hopping on here and there, like, as a means of just to have something light and fun to do. So that's this deck. And I do like the backs. I like the spot gloss. You know, I love my gloss. I feel like this is a pretty, like, thick box. And the last deck that I worked with was actually the deck that you all voted for me to work with in the month of April. So since April and May, I've been working with it. And so I kind of wanted to bring it back to talk about it, to properly wrap that up for you guys. But the deck that you voted for me to use was Tarot of Oneness. It won with 46% of the votes. One of the things, and it's hard not to notice from this deck, and is something that I still love and appreciate besides this nice like orange cream edge here, is how vibrant and alive the artwork feels. It really draws you in, and it does make each card feel immersive. And in part, that's because of the first-person perspective, which is a really unique approach. There's only a handful of other decks that I know of that have this perspective, at least that I've seen or come across. And so it really invites you to step into the scene, which really helped me connect more intuitively with the energy of the card and the deck overall. So that was a really enjoyable experience, the artwork and how immersive it is. But also, and this is not something I alone am saying, a lot of people give accolades to this guidebook, but I can confirm that it really does something that I wish more guidebooks did. And it explains here, even for the minors, as you can see, it explains the keywords, or the symbols, sorry, rather. It explains the symbols and it goes through them and it talks about them. And this adds so much more depth in the moment of reading a card without feeling overwhelming. I felt like they fit in really nicely, and it gave that extra context that I'm always wanting. Or even when you're just drawing a card for something quick, you don't have to reference it either, but it's there for when you need it. And I really like that about this guidebook. The introduction and everything in black here up until you get to the cards is also like really cool, really valuable. And so that is why I would also say that this is a very beginner friendly deck without being like too basic, I guess. And that's kind of, it might seem counterintuitive because of the first person point of view. You would think it's like limiting in that way, but it's really not. The imagery is super approachable. The guidebook is pretty comprehensive without being like heavy-handed. So it has that great balance to it. And so I did use this for a mix of daily draws and deeper, more introspective spreads. So I think it really hits the best of both. So it's very versatile in that way. And yeah, so it was really nice working with this deck. So thank you all for voting for it. And you'll have to let me know if you have this deck. Do you like it? Do you agree with what I said? Do you have a different opinion? Let me know down below. Okay, now I want to talk about the decks that I'm feeling drawn to work in the month of June. And the first one is an Oracle in the Cowgirls. It's a Cowgirls and Aliens Oracle. This one is just a really fun deck. And I don't know, I really found a lot of value in working with this deck as if it, you know, in an archetype way. For example, last time I used this, I was asking it, what archetype do I need to bring forward today, or what archetype has a lesson for me today? So I want to work with it in an embodiment kind of way again. And yeah, I'm just feeling really called to bring that practice back into my work. I think it would be very helpful for me since, you know, since April, where I went through a lot of burnout and that like some personal things just kind of hit the fan. I think embodying a message or an archetype will really help me bring me back to me. I know that doesn't make like a lot of sense, like what being someone else is going to help you bring yourself back to you, but I'm not going to be someone else. I just am going to embody parts that not all of these archetypes am I more naturally inclined to in my personality in my life. And so the ones that are vastly different from me, I think, have a lesson to teach me. And then the ones that maybe resonate a little bit more with me naturally, I think will also work to kind of bring me back to myself. So it's like a very fun and lighthearted deck, but I use it for pretty deep work. So, and I don't know, I feel ready to get back to myself. So the next deck that kind of has been calling to my heart is the Superlunaris. I love the art style of this. I find it very, I don't know, it's like based on real life depictions here, right? Like you can, it's not like fantasy based or anything like that. It's very much entrenched in our world. And so I find that energy very grounding. And I want to be or emanate more groundedness, I guess. And that I just used the theme from June's Oracle pull, so I guess that kind of is assigned to use this. But being more grounded in my day-to-day, so I think I would really like to lean on this for my daily draws at first, and we'll see how it goes, see how it unfolds. Part of coming back to yourself is planting your feet back on the ground and getting your bearings into who you are now, because you'll never be the same. Even from 10 seconds ago, you're not the same person. So just getting your footing, I don't know, I feel like I'm babbling and not making a ton of sense, but this is a deck I'm going to use as a daily draw to help me feel and get more grounded in my daily life, to summarize it. The next one is the Fantasy Garden Tarot. I have to be honest with you, as I was looking through my decks and I saw the garden word, I was like, I want a garden in my life. Not just like outside and when I'm working on, but in my practice as well. So, and I don't know, getting connected to nature and the wonders of the world, which this deck kind of has that. I don't know why all these decks have had cards that are like upside down. So I'm not understanding what's going on, because I don't read like physical reversals. I kind of sense it in the reading that I'm doing. The message just kind of naturally comes forward on what it is. So it's just very strange that all of these decks have had like upside down cards. So anyway, but just getting that sense of nature within my cards that I'm using. So anytime I'm feeling that, maybe I'll literally take this into the garden as well. I think that would be like a really cool practice to start doing. So yeah, Fantasy Garden Tarot. And then the final deck, and one I'm like really super excited about, is When Olga Speaks. And I recently got this in, and I haven't flipped through the cards yet, but I have looked through the guidebook. As you can see, the band is still there. I'll just leave this image here. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do when I flip through and look at each card for the first time. This is a very precious and special deck. And how do I know that? Because I technically haven't worked with it yet. I just know it. I just feel it. That intuition piece again. And I started to journal about this deck in my tarot journal. I really wanted to do a more comprehensive introduction to this deck. So that's kind of what's taking me so long. I just wanted to mention that When Olga Speaks and the Little Sister Tarot are both decks put together by the creators in veneration of very special human beings that they had in their lives. And each deck, they have lost those people in their lives now, but through that loss, a whole new journey and way of life was brought forward for these creators. And through that, at some point in their grief journey, they created this. When I'm working with the Little Sister Tarot, I definitely get those intentions and vibes. And before I've even flipped through this deck, 100% feel that with Olga. And I like what Sasha has said here about death and the process of grief, and how people say time heals all wounds and it helps. And essentially she's saying, yeah, it does help in the fact that the frequency of my grief might lessen, but the amount of grief that washes over me when I'm going through one of those moments that brings it back is still as powerful and hurtful and painful as the day her loved one died. And I have always felt this way. So I feel very seen and understood when she included that in her introduction. And both of these decks, I feel, honor the loved ones, and we see such beautiful outcomes, but to get there was obviously very hard and a struggle for them, and continues to be, because we have to live with that death for the rest of our lives. And I don't know, I have so much respect for these creators, because literally every time I open the box to use the deck, or even write about it, start journaling about it for Olga, I feel that, and that's just such a gift to the world, so I appreciate those decks very much. So I thought that the poll idea was so much fun that I wanted to maybe make this kind of an every month type of thing. I really love your guys' input, and so for this month I would like to work with another oracle deck in my collection. I have a poll up right now about what that oracle deck should be. So your choices are Star Seeker Oracle, Bloodlands Oracle, Mystical Shaman Oracle, and the Love Oracle of Eden cards. So go cast your vote now. I'm so excited to see which one wins, and I'm just overall, I'm leaning more towards Oracle right now in my practice naturally. It's helping me get back on my feet like I was talking about, so I'm very grateful for Oracle in that way. And the final thing I want to talk about today is this guy here, the Majestic Earth. So the Majestic Earth deep dive study is still happening, but I am still behind. I'm still playing catch up with the minors, but the next time I speak about it, because June is technically the last month, can you believe it? Like, I can't even believe it. I started this in February and it's June already somehow. Like, that's just blowing my mind. It's crazy. But the next time I talk about this deck, I will be doing its own dedicated video about my thoughts and reflections. I think that the video will probably come out in July sometime because I have stuff planned for this. The study goes through the very last day of June, and then I want to take some time to really reflect and think about my study with it, what it's taught me, and maybe the method, like my approach to the actual organization of the study, how I would change it for next time, because the next deck that I'm doing a deep dive with is Tarocci by Mr. Friborg. And with this, there's like a twofold kind of, or two-layer study going on, because this is a Marseille style deck. And I don't know anything a lot about at all Marseille. So in July, I will be doing like a warm introduction study about Marseille, but we'll really be deep diving into it with this deck. This is the only true Marseille that I have. So that's the one I'll be working with. So it's not only a study of this particular deck, but the Marseille system. So I think I need to, I guess, just a little like off the cuff sneak peek thought about the organization of my deep dives. But I think each deep dive obviously will be catered to the deck itself that I'm working with, because no deck is like another. But because of the nature of me also learning Marseille for the first time with this deck, I feel like it needs to be structured a little bit differently. So I will be changing, I think, not only the length of the study, but how I'm organizing each week. So stay tuned for that. That will come after the wrap up, so even later in July, because in August, this is when I want to start this study. All right, so that was my month of May and some of the stuff I have planned for June. I hope you guys are doing well and you're hanging in there, and I'm sending all positive vibes your way. I have really missed filming while I was away, so thank you guys so much for welcoming me back with open arms, for all the support that you've given me, and until next time, see you around.